In 3, 2. Hey kids, welcome to stop it. Are you throwing up gang signs? Like I'm not even 10 seconds into my intro and are you seriously throwing up are we going to do it? Like put it on MySpace, do that kind of whole deal?
It's 3, 2, 1, go. I was just trying to give you a countdown, sir. Good grief.
Well, folks, in case you haven't noticed, I'm sorry, man. I was having flashbacks to Robert Downey and the original Iron Man, back when Marvel was still good and stuff. But anyway, folks, in case you haven't noticed, this episode of the Dudes in Hyperspace going a little bit differently for technical reasons and because, frankly, we just thought it would be fun to mix things up a little bit. The platform that we usually record with seems to be having issues this evening, so we're flipping back to the old Zoom, which means you get the perk. Those of you on YouTube anyway get the perk of seeing our lovely faces, which, as by now you have probably figured out that this is not my usual cast and crew of characters. We're going to take you back in time tonight, folks. Welcome to the first ever generation of the Dudes in Hyperspace cast. I am Ian J. Malone, joined, as I was for quite some time, by my good friends Dave Daniels. Say hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
And Scott Esther. Say hi, Scott Esther.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Well, I kind of knew way back, guys, when Kenobi dropped. For those of you who listen to this show, that's been a subject that I in particular have been looking very much forward to seeing, more so than probably most stuff coming out of Disneyland Star Wars era. Well, it's out now, and I knew I wanted to record a standalone episode on that. I also knew that this month marks 3 years of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. So who better to go back and celebrate that anniversary with than the original pair of guys who helped me get this show started, talking about one of our favorite topics between the three of us that we've always enjoyed discussing. Go back and listen to the early episodes. Star Wars was everywhere, and it's because we've been fans of this franchise for as long as we could walk, pretty much. So Kenobi just wrapped last night. We've had the opportunity to see the finale, digest the finale, think about the finale, and we are here with thoughts. Before we get started on that, though, I do want to say thanks to our sponsors. That's, of course, Chris Kennedy Publishing. Doesn't matter what you're into, folks. If it's military, sci-fi, space opera, urban fantasy, even books about the craft, they've got it all for you. Go check them out at chriskennedypublishing.com. While you're there, sign up for their newsletter, get a free email, learn about their books, their series. We got budget books coming out just about every week, guys. So while times are tough, we got free books. We got dollar books. We're here to keep you entertained on the cheap because, frankly, a whole lot of people need that right now. Other sponsor I want to say thanks to is the International Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Authors. If you're a writer or a reader, go check them out at iasfa.org. They have got community for the writers and they got free books for the readers. Can't ever go wrong with that either. Love those folks at IASFA. So, alrighty, boys. Well, the homework and the bill paying is out of the way. Let's get down to discussing why we're here.
Well, it sounds to me like gas is up, but books are down. So that's a good thing, right?
Gas is up and books have kind of stayed right where they're at, I think, which is a good thing, for those of us who sell those books.
And for those people that drive.
And for those people that drive. It's very true. So, God, gas. Don't even be started. Let's stick with Star Wars and Kenobi, shall we? This will go downhill fast if we go down that rabbit hole. All right, so Kenobi wrapped last night. I assume everybody's had a chance to see it. Yes, Scott, I know you saw it. Dave, you've seen it. Okay.
That is correct,
Dave, I'm going to start with you. I want A to F. Give me your overall grade for the show, and then bird's eye view, first impressions, having just watched the finale last night. What'd you think? We're going to get into the things that we really liked, things we didn't like, all that jazz shortly, but let's just start from the top. Grade and bird's eye view. Go.
I'll give it a B.
Okay.
Give it a B. I think that overall, it was a good show. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but I think that it did some decent storytelling. I think it did a few things that I enjoyed. It punched a couple of holes in some things, but I think overall, it was a good show.
Scott, how about you?
I had it hovering right around a B minus.
Okay.
Just the overall, same kind of sentiments. Entertaining. Looked forward to it every week. There wasn't a time where I was like, man, I really don't, really don't want to check out the next episode, or I'll wait a couple of days. I was into it. Wanted to see the next one, but overall entertaining.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to be the naysayer, and I'm going to give it a C. Just a good old right down the middle, butt ass average C. which
C's
really
get degrees, sir. C's get degrees.
C's do get degrees, but they don't make for memorable television, particularly in Star Wars. You know, I said coming into this on the show, I said coming into this with other friends of mine, other writer friends, what this show did not need to be under any circumstances was just another Star Wars run and chase the droid, shoot them up. You know, we're going to give you 5 stretches of dialogue, and then we're going to be right back into another action scene, chase the thing, run the thing. You know, this did not need to be that. A Boba Fett show can be that. All right, give me a little bit of backstory and let's blow some crap up. That's what he's there to do. This did not need to be that. And I think that's exactly what we got, which is why I'm only giving it a C. And they're lucky I'm even going to give them that. So, Scott, I'm going to start with you on my next question, man. Let's go ahead and get into the weeds. We'll start with the bad news. What didn't you like about Kenobi?
So I guess to start off, it was they had to have a reason to connect Leia to Obi Wan, other than passing, other than the Organas. She had to know him on some level. And the Organas were not going to give up Obi-Wan just willingly pass that information over. So how does that connection get made? The kidnapping, chase scene to the other planet, all that kind of stuff, that I wasn't thrilled by it. It kind of was a rinse and repeat of the storylines that we've seen before.
Yep.
We've got the all right, well, they're captured. We've got inept stormtroopers coming after them. We've got inquisitors that come right up against it, but don't quite get there. Skip away type situation, and then the rescue portion of it inside the Inquisitors HQ. Classic Star Wars. Zero security among the Empire, amongst their most important pieces of real estate in the universe, and then the last minute, we've got you pinned. Starship comes in. By the way, spoilers for anybody who has not seen this.
Yeah, yes, we're going mad spoilers. If you haven't seen Kenobi, you don't need to watch this just yet. Come back. So if you do come back, please like the videos and subscribe to the channel. I would add that. But just wait to do that until after you've seen the actual finale.
So those were the that was the part of it that kind of lost me. I felt like they could have done a better job of finding a way to connect Leia to Obi-Wan, other than that, sort of, like I said, the rinse and repeat storyline that they've done. And if you've watched the cartoons and you've watched, all the other things, it was very much they followed the plan.
Yeah. So. Yes, they did. Dave, how about you, man? What didn't you like about it? Why didn't this thing get an A in your mind?
I feel like they tried to make a 10-year-old Leia much older by just forcing dialogue.
Yeah.
You got some very grown up stuff. And then they've got a grown person chasing a 10-year-old in basically open space when they're trying to contact her. And dude looks like he's running in slow motion on purpose, trying to catch her.
Yeah.
Like I felt like they extremely tried to force every single bit of that with her to try and make her mimic what we knew Leia was going to be.
Yeah.
And I felt, unfortunately, there were times during that, and I think the little girl did everything they asked her to do. And I think actually she did a pretty good job overall with what they asked her to do.
Yep.
I just really felt like that they tried to force some stuff with that they really just didn't need to do. And it took me out of it.
You said this to me via text very early on in the series, and I totally agree with it. They really should, if they wanted her to be that involved in the story, they really should have cast a girl who was like 13, 14 years old. That's really what they needed to do. I would argue that they barely needed her at all. I think 10-year-old Leia was fine for the first episode. That was the perfect lure to get him out of hiding, and then she needed to be gone. But they felt that Kid Leia would sell more toys and bring in more youngster eyeballs, and so that's what we got, because that's the Disney way, man. Scott alluded to it earlier. It's all about the formula now. That's as clear as can be, whether it's Marvel or whether it's Star Wars. Here's the template. Here's the playbook. Here are the tropes. Here's what we're going to do. It's like watching WWE now, man. Like, you've seen every one of those wrestlers before. You've seen the gimmicks. You've seen the styles. You've seen the promos. You've been there. You've done that. So yeah, I'm kind of in there with you as well. There was a lot more about this show that I didn't like beside Kid Leia. I'll start there for a lot of the same reasons that Dave just mentioned. I felt like she was just a lot of what they gave her should have gone to an older kid, and it didn't. I didn't buy her delivering those lines and coming up with those ideas. I also frankly just didn't think she needed to be in the dadgum show. And my biggest argument with this show was for a year, 2 years even, we have been sold this is it. This is Kenobi. This is Vader. This is what the conflict at the end of Revenge of the Sith did not do for you. We're going to right that wrong was pretty much the message. Like they didn't say that, but that was pretty much it. We're going to give it to you this time. We're going to bring the goods. And I got everything but that. Like when you look down 6 hours of programming, I know this originally was conceived as a movie way back when, and then they pivoted to a Disney Plus show. And I was really excited about that because I thought, okay, they're really going to develop the story now. You got, anywhere from 4 hours, 45 minutes to 6 hours, depending on how long your episodes are, to tell this story. That's going to make for some really compelling stuff. And it didn't. You could have told this entire story in a 2-hour movie and not lost a thing with regard to Vader and Obi Wan. And I think that's the biggest travesty of it all. The other thing that just really put me off on this show was they wasted so much time on storylines that I just didn't give a crap about. Again, I was there for Vader. I was there for Kenobi. I was not there for yet another redemption story with Third Sister, who, speaking of wrestlers, I thought for the first 3 episodes, I was like, to be sure, they swiped the chick from WWE. Like with her acting ability being what it is, like she has got to be a wrestler somewhere. And they brought her in because she could fight. Like that's got to be it. Because they sure didn't bring her in for her acting chops. So yeah. I didn't buy her from the jump anyway, but I also just didn't care about her story. Kid Leia was another one. I didn't care. I don't need to see how Leia becomes Leia. I don't need to see what drives her and how she gets the holster. Okay. I also didn't need yet another Birth of the Rebellion story, which is basically what this is. We got that for 5 great years in Star Wars Rebels. Also got that in Rogue One. I don't need that. I was here for Kenobi versus Vader. And I feel like that was an afterthought compared to all the other crap that they wanted to plug into this 6-episode arc. And I mean, to sum it all up, I told Natalie this, it's like when you've been promised that you're going to get an awesome juicy steak dinner on Friday night when you get off work. Right. And you're salivating, man. This is going to be a beautiful 16-ounce ribeye with perfect marbling, cooked to perfection, medium with some pink in the middle, seasoned right. You're going to get yourself a good quality loaded baked potato, maybe a little salad, maybe a little bit of vegetables on the side, ice cold beer. But the signature piece is that beautiful cut of meat that you're going to sink your teeth into and it's going to melt in your mouth. And then you show up at the restaurant on Friday night and you get this little like 4-ounce sirloin with some French fries and a salad and a Coke. And it's like, I got nothing against French fries and salad, but that's not why I came here. I came here for steak and you gave me all this other stuff and you didn't really give me that. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that was kind of how I felt about this story by the time I got to the end of it. And you could nutshell all that down with the big duel in the final episode. You got a few frames of Kenobi fighting Vader, and then we got a slice to Tatooine. Because apparently the Third Sister flies the fastest ship of all time. And she basically clicked her heels together and was on Tatooine, mortally wounded, no less. But we've got to cut back and forth to her chasing Luke. And we all know there's nothing coming to that. Luke clearly survives. You already know she's not going to do it. She's a former Padawan. Like she's going to turn to the light and find redemption and all that and find remorse. Everybody saw that coming a mile away. And yet they insisted on cutting away from the one scene that we've all been waiting for a year to show you that pointless storyline.
Luke makes it out of this episode. Like he goes on from here. There's a whole story involving a guy named Luke Skywalker.
I know it blows your mind, doesn't it?
Why has no one told me this yet?
So that
I felt the same way watching each of the episodes. It was like, well, I know where this ends.
Yeah.
So show me the reason that Vader again was the most feared villain in the entire universe.
Oh,
show
me
when
my man gets off the ship and starts snapping necks to lure Kenobi out. I was like, all right, that's Vader. That was extremely well done.
Yeah, we got a taste of it at the end of Rogue One.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is it. That was the epitome of like, oh yeah, this dude is bad.
Yeah.
And then we saw it again a little bit here, but I wanted more of that.
Yeah.
You know, we for so long he was such a mystery.
Yeah.
And then we didn't see any of it. And I mean, unless you're on the comic book side of it, which I wasn't growing up, I didn't read those.
None of that is canon anymore anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Disney
now,
threw all that out.
Now you've got to shift to like, well, why is this dude the bad dude?
Yeah.
Why is he the big bad? And so we got to see a little bit of that in those fights. He's grabbing Star Destroyers, he's pulling them to the ground, Starship pulling them to the ground, he's ripping them open like a can opener. You know, those types of things. The fight scenes with Reva, I thought was pretty impressive. The way that he manipulated the Force to put her in her place fairly easily. And then the end scene with Obi Wan was great, but I could have used a little more of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, which begs the question: why did you need to bring Hayden Christensen back for this? I mean, you basically got two scenes that you needed him for. The one flashback, which was spectacular, and what I wouldn't have given to have gotten at least 2 or 3 more of those. Mm-hmm. And then, the scene when he's been beat all to hell on the moon or wherever it is that they're fighting, and you can see his face, pieces of his face, very a la Star Wars Rebels when he faced off against Ahsoka. You see part of his face through the mask. By the way, though, I will give the showrunners credit, or the tech people credit. The way they screwed with his voice to make it sound like it was glitching in and out of the Vader voice between Anakin's voice and Vader's voice, that was cool. Like, it made him sound like Frankenstein's monster kind of deal. Very cool.
You got a quick throwback there. You got a quick throwback there too to the original sound. And if you look back at it, I saw an article today that talked about it a little bit, where the original sound that was made when his mask came off on the second Death Star is the same sound they gave when his breathing apparatus was damaged on here as well.
Yep.
So it's
I caught
definitely
that
some
too.
good throwback stuff.
Very cool.
Well, and I mean, Disney's great at nostalgia. They've given you plenty of that, whether it was Force Awakens or whatever. Like, they do nostalgia very well. It's the original stuff that they seem to have a problem with. Like, I am kind of hitting that point with Star Wars Disney, that if Favreau and Filoni are not directly attached, I don't really know if I want to give it much time. That's kind of where I'm at with that. But
it begs the question, where does it go from here?
You're going to get a series that nobody wants or cares about later on this year called Andor, which is the pirate guy from Rogue One that has the droid with Alan Tudyk. Like, we're going to find out why he, gets away from smuggling and turns to the light. Redemption story, how novel in Star Wars, and set before the rise of the rebellion. So basically, it's a rehash of a whole bunch of crap you've already seen. I'm probably not going to watch it. And then later next year, you get Mandalorian season 3 and Ahsoka. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that's on the docket to come out after that, but we'll see how far along the line that progresses. But those are the ones that you're looking at. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to beat this drum all night. I told a buddy of mine at Pensacon. It was Pensacon. Me and another writer friend of mine went out for dinner, and we were talking about this because he's our age, and so he grew up on Star Wars too. And we were talking about Kenobi, and he's like, "Well, how would you write it?" And I said, "Honestly, man, this will probably be the lowest action Star Wars series that people have ever seen. Like, I'm spending." Did you guys watch Lost or Arrow?
Yeah.
Either one of those shows?
No.
Okay. Well, in either one of those shows, you basically had 2 storylines going on. You had the flashback storyline, and then you had the current event storyline. I would have done that. That's the approach I would have taken with this show. I would have had half the story being told back in the Clone Wars, reminding viewers and audiences why these guys were so tight. Showing them at their best when they were fighting together, bleeding together, sweating together, brothers in arms, that whole deal. I would have really stressed that, because the goal is, by the time you get to that duel at the end of the final episode, I want viewers to be absolutely miserable that it came to this. Like, it should have never come to this with these two. And yet here we are, and really make the audience feel the weight of that. We didn't do any of that here. There was no time given to that whatsoever.
There was a part of me that even during the finale where they were, I was like, is Obi Wan going to say, "We were brothers, Anakin"? Back to the episode 3, You know, as they're standing there, and I honestly thought that Vader was going to say something about now I have the high ground.
Yeah.
You know, at one point I was like, they were leading it up to that point, and so it felt like they could have pushed it a little bit further. You know, so
I will say I did think that scene when he's got him and he's just beat him was probably the best writing of the show for me.
Mhm.
And it was, and I'll dovetail now into what we liked about the show. 2 words: Ewan McGregor. You know, most fans agree that Ewan McGregor was far and away the best thing about the prequel films.
Yes.
He was by far the best thing about this show. And when he tears up at the end of that scene, I thought, man, way to turn chicken crap into chicken salad, my man. Like that is beautiful. Like you could see it all over his face and in his tone that he just, all those years of grief and of remorse for the way things went down just hit him like a ton of bricks. And he finally had the opportunity to tell his best friend, I'm so sorry for what happened, for all of it. I'm so sorry. And then they gave Christensen some really good lines mixed with some great makeup and some great effects, and you got what you got. So that I was really happy with. I wanted more of that relationship and that dynamic. And they wasted our freaking time with Third Sister, Inquisitors, and Kid Leia.
Well, I think they could have probably put in some of the Inquisitor stuff, but the honest answer is like you said, the relationship between the two. If you've read some of the Vader comics that came out when Disney first took over, there was a huge dynamic between the Emperor and Vader, where the Emperor is constantly testing him. The Emperor is constantly pushing him and basically breaking what's left of Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
So that he becomes what that is. And I think that you can use a storyline that way, where we saw the Emperor at the very end. Why not take the opportunity, since you already have him there, to make him part of that storyline?
Yes.
Make it to where Vader's still trying to figure some of this out. And he's completely over on the other side, but you get some of that back and forth. And if you get a lot more of that, I don't know that anybody's going to have anything better to say about what we liked about the show other than Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
There were parts of it that I enjoyed. I mean, the nostalgia part of it, you hit those buttons the right way. The fact that he calls him Darth instead of Darth Vader at the end of the show. If you look at the end of it, where he splits that helmet, and again, this is some of the stuff that I've gleaned from looking at some stuff online, but if you remember when they take the helmet off, he's got scarring on the top of his head right where that thing hit.
Yeah.
So it's all of that takes you back into it. That's how they keep pulling us back in. But you hit it on the head with that many hours to be able to spend. I think you can take the Inquisitors, because the Inquisitors were under Vader in the comics, and Vader is telling them to go find them. This is what's going on. Your redemption story, if you have to tell it, is Vader.
Yeah.
That's them trying to figure everything out. You get teased with it. You know where it's going to go for the most part, because honestly, if you look at it, it ends with him being redeemed, but it's not until episode 6.
Right.
It's just a continuation of that and the little seeds that are planted and what happens between the two. Watching Ewan McGregor struggle with being a broken man and trying to find himself again was awesome.
Yes.
But that was it. All the rest of that and the other things they did with the callbacks are just things that they do because that's how they keep suckering us back in.
I love Jimmy Smits. I'm a big Jimmy Smits guy. Just about anything he's in, I think that guy's a rock star. So bringing him back, I'm always a fan of seeing him on screen, but I also really appreciated the relationship that they showed you there, albeit briefly, between him and Leia and him being her adopted father. You know, I think that when you look back on her time in A New Hope, when she watches Alderaan get blown away, we never really saw any of that. Like, we saw her get adopted. Okay, she's got adoptive parents who loved her and gave her a childhood, and that's why she's sad. This really got to show her in that element, and it really showed you her relationship with those people. And so, you know, now when you watch A New Hope, I think, all right, well, maybe that's got a little bit more weight to it. But again, it starts with Jimmy Smits being just an awesome actor and really giving you some warmth to those scenes that I think really delivered. So, Scott, you got anything to add?
No, I think we've touched on a lot of it. It's, wish they just would have been able to flesh it out a little bit more, and maybe pulled in the reason that, Obi Wan was always the one that cared the most about the people around him never wanting to see anyone get hurt. And he's, cutting up meat in a factory, when we find him on Tatooine.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen him do a little bit more protecting of the innocent on the planet, which probably drew the ire of the Inquisitors to begin with,
right.
Versus how they, they're like, oh yeah, we think there's some force sensitive people here, so we're going to show up.
Right.
It would have been good for them to have more of a reason to show up on Tatooine to say, I think there's something strange going on here, because there's this one guy who's one of the best Jedis left in the universe doing some cool stuff here on this planet.
Yeah. I do kind of want to jump back to something that Dave touched on just a second ago. Using using the Emperor a bit more. He was just a little bit cameo, and that was it. Qui-Gon Jinn, another one. I really felt like, and I know it's going to be cliche as hell, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I felt like at some point, man, you needed the Rocky power-up scene. Like, I wanted to see, once you got to about episode 4, I was like, okay, I want to see my man save the day. All right. We rescued baby Leia from the Inquisitorious fortress, something or another. My man needs to get home now, find himself a place where he can be quiet and think. It's time to meditate. It's time to train. And that is the point when I need Qui-Gon to make his appearance. Like when Obi-Wan is at his most vulnerable, having just had his butt handed to him by Vader. Now I need him to really be able to focus and dial in. And I would have loved to have seen Qui-Gon Jinn, rather than just being an afterthought in the final frame of the show, be that mentor one more time who helps him get to that, start down that path to being the Jedi that we see in season 5 of Star Wars Rebels. Because when you see him go up against Maul, my man is so in tune with the Force, it's a stroke, and he cuts him down. Like, he is a bona fide badass at that point. Mm-hmm. Let's start to see the beginnings and the genesis of that here. And I think Qui-Gon Jinn would have been a great way to kickstart that process. And he trains. We have a good sequence there where he's out in the desert swinging the lightsaber, getting back into form, knocking off the rust. And then it's time to load up in the ship and go handle business against Vader. Like, give me the build up to the big showdown. But again, it's just action, 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 run, 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 chase the ball, chase the girl, chase the droid. And here we are. So anyway, I got one last question on the docket, and this will start to kind of round us out from the night. Before I get to that, though, I did not ask you guys arguably the most important question of the night. What in the world are you drinking this evening? Dave?
Nothing. I didn't bring anything in with me when I came in and sat down. I apologize. I came in from dinner real quick. Chipmunk was not on the menu this evening. Because of that, I had to run around and get some stuff. So when I get done here, I have a few things that I can choose from. I actually got as a birthday gift a very nice bourbon, a Florida Select. It's a whiskey, not a bourbon. A very nice Florida Select from Mr. Malone. I may partake in that. I've got some house guests. We may just impress and find something else. But right now, nothing. I have some water in my system because of how hot it is right now in Florida.
No joke, man. 104 here. Scott, how about you, man? What are you sipping on this evening?
I've got a small batch 1792.
Okay. Good stuff.
Bourbon.
All righty.
Delicious.
While I am on the Buffalo Trace wagon, by the way. So thanks to my buddy. Thanks to my buddy. If he's listening to this, he knows who he is for the hookup on that. Got a friend down here who runs the liquor wagon around North Florida. So anytime I need something special, he gets on it for me.
These are real friends, sir. These are real friends.
He is a real friend
liquor wagon,
indeed, sir. The liquor wagon. He is a good dude. But anyway, yeah. So I'm on the Buffalo Trace round this evening. So never goes wrong with that. But all right, last question that I did have for you guys. There is talk of a season 2 of Obi Wan Kenobi. Scott, I'll start with you. Do you want it? Do you care, or do you want them just to let sleeping dogs lie from here?
I don't know what more outside of Vader's escapades between now and A New Hope that we need to see. Yep. He becomes a hermit, goes out into the desert, and so Luke is 10, So
It
we're to
ages
believe
terribly,
next,
apparently.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
The next 9 years, man. My man is that Tatooine son, boy. It's
Woo-hoo.
brutal. So yeah, I don't know that there's any more stories to tell unless there are there's a connection to Qui-Gon that allows him to stay connected to the Force with other Force sensitive people. We know Ahsoka is still out there.
Right.
There's some other things in play that that Kenobi has had his hands in the past that they could pick some storylines there, but I don't know that I need another 6 hours of it.
Speaking of Ahsoka, that could be interesting. Dave Filoni is the man behind that show, as he should be, because he's the one who created that character. We know that's going to be set Mandalorian era, so that's about 5 years after Return of the Jedi. There is no Vader, and yet Hayden Christensen has been confirmed to return in some form in that show. You got anything you want to see out of that?
I don't know. I thought Clone Wars did a really good job of showing the relationship between those two, and then even the it's not really a reboot, but the extra seasons that they tacked on recently went much deeper into that. And so I'm not sure. I'd like to be surprised that there are some creative folks out there that could put some stories together that make sense and are entertaining, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what they're, what's going on with that.
Yeah. Dave, how about you, man? Do you want or need an Obi-Wan season 2? If so, what would you want to see out of that? And then what are your thoughts looking ahead to Ahsoka? Hayden Christensen is going to be back. Dave Filoni is going to be running the whole thing. What do you want out of that, if anything?
Look here, Lucasfilm people. Look here, right here. See this right here, right here, right here. Take the name Skywalker out of it. Yeah. If you're going to do something with Obi-Wan, now it just needs to be Obi-Wan's story.
Yeah.
I think Ahsoka is going to be good just because it's got Filoni in it. Whatever they end up doing with Hayden Christensen's great. But here's what I'm going to say to you as my final. This is it. Think about this for a minute. You have to get a Vader series out before something happens to James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
You have all this comic book stuff you can put together of the things that he went through, and you can show him doing all the things that Vader does and flesh out that story, and it's what everybody wants. But if you do it after James Earl Jones, something happens to him, whether it be that he passes or that just something happens and that voice isn't available, we will all collectively slap you in the head.
True enough.
Now,
I don't need an Obi-Wan series, a season 2. You had one shot. All right. You gave me your 6 episodes. I got what I got. I'm not in love with it. I might go back and watch it again at some point down the line. It's going to be a while. I'm going to unplug from Disney Plus for a while, by the way. There's nothing on the horizon that's coming that I'm like, you know what? I really, really want to watch that. The last few original series that they put out have been fairly underwhelming to me. Nothing has grabbed me. Loki didn't grab me. Falcon and Winter Soldier didn't grab me. It just is. None of the Star Wars stuff has really grabbed me, really, with the exception of the last season of Clone Wars that Scott talked about. I didn't need a Bad Batch series. Didn't care. Didn't watch that one. I don't care about the Andor series. I'm going to punt until 2023 and see what happens with Mandalorian season 3, and we'll call it a day on that. Maybe after I've had some time to get away from it for a while, I'll go back and rewatch this. But, as it stands now, 24 hours after watching the finale, I don't need more of this. I'm with both of these guys when they say, let my man go be a hermit on Tatooine and let's call it a day. Get in the sun, get some gray hair on you, and let's become Obi-Wan. With regard to the Ahsoka series, again, man, give me some good quality flashbacks. I want to see some live action stuff of those two, Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, together back to back. If you want to bring him back in as a Force ghost, that's fine, but give him a role, give him a presence. That is, if you were to do that, I do think that is one version of Anakin Skywalker that we've never seen. The Anakin Skywalker who made it through Vader, who survived it, came back, has all that knowledge, all that insight, all that wisdom. Let's see what that Anakin Skywalker is like now as a Force ghost. That could be cool if written well. But I don't know. I'm not holding my breath on any of this stuff anymore.
Yeah, it makes you wonder with some of the cameos, obviously Qui-Gon and those types of things. You've got Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen. You've got all these folks that you brought in and you filmed 6 episodes worth of Obi-Wan. Yeah. What other nuggets did they film that are going to get sprinkled in down the line? Yeah. That's those are those are the things that I'm kind of waiting for that shoe to drop and that type of thing. So
we'll say one good thing to come out of this. Nice to see a guy like Hayden Christensen get his due. I think it was very easy to saddle him with a lot of the failures that were the prequels in the minds of a lot of fans. And I think as we've all had time to grow up a little bit and learn more about how movies are made and stories are written and Hollywood does things, you learn that he was just a guy taking his cues. All right. What are you supposed to say when George Lucas calls you and says, I want you to be Anakin Skywalker? You don't not take that call. So, the dialogue shortfalls and all,
partner, we're doing this.
Right. All of that, I don't think that was on him. I think the kid did the best he could. And he was young back then. So, fast forward to now, it's nice to see him getting such a warm reception from Star Wars fans, because I think the guy earned it. And that's cool. I hope they go on to actually do something with him. One point of contention I did have with him, by the way, he is a very small Vader. Like, Vader was visibly smaller with him in the suit. And I get it. Not everybody's got to be David Prowse, but come on, man. Can we put some shoulder pads on this guy and maybe buff him out, make him a little bit wider? Because he was a visibly smaller Vader to me. You guys got any thoughts on that?
I didn't really notice it.
They could have easily just put somebody else in the suit.
He wanted to do it though. He was pretty adamant that if I'm going to do this, I want to be in the suit. I want to be that character, which no problem. You've earned that, man.
Yeah. There's enough camera tricks out there to be able to, make him look bigger than what they did. But it didn't take me out of it. I didn't look at it and go like, oh, he looks like you're a little short for a stormtrooper.
Right? Now, he's a fairly tall dude. I want to say he's like 6'2", 6'4". He's just not a very wide guy. He's a very lean. You look at Anakin Skywalker. He's a very lean built dude. He's not a monster like freaking David Prowse, who I believe was actually a bodybuilder.
Yep. He was a professional bodybuilder, 6'6".
Yep. So my man's got the height. He's just a much more slender build than Prowse was.
Over the ages, Vader put on a few pounds. You saw what 5 years did to Obi-Wan.
Yeah. We'll say, and yet again, another miss. It was really cool to see the armor up scene. And I think it was episode 2 when they pull him out of the Bacta tank and you see him basically get loaded into the armor. That was pretty cool. Dave, you've read the comics. Why did he set up shop on Mustafar? That's like the second or third time that I've heard about that Vader's castle or fortress or whatever is on freaking Mustafar. And I have wanted to know that forever. And I thought I would get that here, but now they decided to gloss over that too. Has that been answered in the comics?
I've read the first few. I believe in lore, it has to do with the fact that that's basically where Vader was created.
Yeah.
You get a choice as you become a Sith Lord where you want to do it. And typically you're going to do it somewhere that has that kind of meaning to you, whether it be a place where you fought a great battle or someplace like that. But I believe it's just because that's where Vader was created, basically.
Gotcha. All righty, fellas. Well, I've got no more parting shots on this. I think I've pretty well aired it out for my opinions and thoughts on this. Again, I'm going to give this one some time, and maybe I'll go back in 6 months or 8, 9 months and give it another watch. And maybe I'll kind of warm to it a little bit more, but 24 hours out, man, I stand by my butt ass average C. I think that's what this was. It was a very forgettable Star Wars show. And I think there could be no more damning review of an Obi-Wan show than that. Any parting shots, last thoughts from you guys? Dave, I'll start with you.
I think I've left it on the table at this point in time. I did have some very memorable moments from the show, but I'm sticking with my B. Overall, it was a decent show.
Scott, how about you, man? Parting shots.
Just like anything else that gets put out, whether it's in the Star Wars universe or the Marvel universe, I get to sit down and watch it with my daughter, and that's just fun to be able to connect generationally with somebody else to watch it, because it's it's the 45 minutes of the live action, and then we sit around and talk about it for a little while.
That's cool.
Theories and those other things. So for me, it's just as much as an excuse to spend time, good quality time, not staring in front of a phone time with my kids. So that's always a good thing.
Heck yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, Scott, Dave, absolute pleasure to talk with you guys again, man. Let's not wait a year and a half or whatever it's been to do another one of these. We'll get you back at some point when we got something to talk about. We'll do this again.
Yeah,
like ride the bike.
We can always do anniversary shows. Those are nice.
Absolutely, man. So, well, folks, one more time, don't forget to check out our sponsors of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. That would be Chris Kennedy Publishing, who you can find at chriskennedypublishing.com, and the International Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Authors. You can find them online at iasfa.org. Both have newsletters. Sign up for them both because you get lots of cool stuff. If you want to support the show, then go do it. If you're listening to us on podcast form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. A lot of those platforms will let you leave stars and reviews. Please do that because it helps to bump us up the rankings and help other people to find us. YouTubers, like the show, subscribe to the channel, smash it, hit it, whatever all those fun, fancy terms are the kids use today. Go do those things on YouTube because, again, it helps to bump us up through the rankings and help other folks to find us. So we'll be back next time with my usual guys, Rob and Kevin. Thanks again to Dave and Scott, and thanks to you, the listeners. We'll see you next time on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. See ya.
See ya.